Good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Reisman. I am a third-year resident at the University of Minnesota in physical medicine and rehabilitation. And this is going to be the single biggest waste of time of your entire night. This is going to be the worst video or live you ever participate in. And who's interested what's going to come out of my mouth next? I would imagine you're wondering what I'm going to say next. Or what if I said, this is going to be the best video you have ever watched in your entire life. This is going to be the single most important thing you ever do for your future and for the future of everybody that you care about. It's a little intriguing, right? You would be interested to hear what I'm going to say next. But what if I said, this video is going to be pretty good. It's going to be interesting for some people, but some people will think it's a total waste of time. You might like it, you might not like it. You're not going to want to stick around. So the point is, be extreme. Now, what does that mean? By being extreme, you're creating a hook, and that's how you're going to start a personal statement. So as I mentioned, my name is Jonathan Reisman. I'm a third-year resident in PM&R at the University of Minnesota. I am in their educator track for residents. I teach first years and second year medical students. But this video is exclusively my own representation and thoughts. This is not a representation of my residency program or employer. That being the case, personal statements, they are important. They're important for getting into medical school. They're important for getting into residency. And we don't want to write okay personal statements. We don't want to write mediocre personal statements. We don't want to write good personal statements. We want to write amazing personal statements. So how do we do that? Let's focus initially on what is the purpose of a personal statement. Think about it. Why is it important? They get your MCAT, they get your board scores if it's for residency, they see your scores, they see your GPA, they see your experiences. Why need a personal statement? The way I think about a personal statement is it gives a person an opportunity to decide, do I want to meet this person and give them an interview? And if you're just mediocre and forgettable, you're probably not going to stand out. Now, that being the case, you don't want to stand out for bad reasons either. You don't want to stand out for being cheesy, for being corny, for being too extreme. So you want to strike a nice balance. The way I sort of think about that is subtle extremism, or you want to present yourself as a casual VIP. I'm the life of the party, but, no big deal. That's kind of how you want to come across. Now, the way I suggest starting a personal statement, and when I work with people and do one-on-one coaching for their personal statements, we start off this way. And what you're going to do is you are going to plot out your life, exactly how it sounds. Even if you have an idea of what you want to say in your personal statement, what you think you should say in your personal statement, take out a blank sheet of paper, go to a empty room where nobody's going to bother you, and in the center of the paper, write your name, put a circle around it, then make a map. And map out everything in your life. It's okay if you don't know where you're going with it right away, but everything that's important is going to go on that map. Your family, how many family members you have, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, their names, their ages, interesting things about them, school, where you went to school, where you went to kindergarten, did you like school, did you not like school, location, where you lived, what country you lived in, did you move, were you raised in a certain religion, did you go to church, did you go to synagogue, did you do any activities, did you play sports, what are you good at, what are you bad at, what is easy for you, what is hard for you. Map out all of those things. You're going to have a plot of everything that you can possibly have as an ingredient for your personal statement. Then we want to take it a step further. What are you good at and what are you bad at? And again, what's focus on the importance of the personal statement. Does the person reading this personal statement want to waste their time with meeting you? Do they think you are going to advance their cause? Are you going to make their institution better? Are you going to show signs of being a good student, a good resident, a good doctor? What would make a successful doctor? Would a successful doctor be somebody who's really smart? If you're on medical school admissions or residency, do you just want to take somebody who's smart? No. You would ideally have some smart people, but I think the most important thing is you want somebody that works hard. You want somebody that plays on a team. You want somebody that cares about other people. You want somebody that doesn't quit when things are rough. You want somebody that's motivated, passionate, intelligent, caring. All of those things are what your personal statement should be saying you are. And again, much like other things, and the interview is an entirely different discussion. You don't want to list what you are good at. You don't want to say, hi, my name is Jonathan Reisman, and I am caring, I am smart, I am funny, I am kind, I am nice, I'm the best thing that has ever happened to you. You don't say those things, but you show those things. My name is Jonathan Reisman. I rescued a grandma from a burning building. I solved, World War III before it happened. I went to the moon, came back from the moon. I cured coronavirus. You show all of those things, try to show them with some degree of humility, and you will be dictating all of those great adjectives about you without actually saying them. So taking this a step back again, we said you were going to focus on what you're good at, what you're bad at. And again, the beginning, it's a hook. So in the beginning, something bold. And you can use this example for anything. Pick something that you're really good at, pick something that you're really bad at. Part of writing a good personal statement is going through the exercise of how you're going to do it. Whatever would go on in your life, if you've ever had something bad happen to you, how do you reflect? How do you move forward after that? Do you find meaning in it? Does it motivate you to fix yourself? Your personal statement should be uplifting and motivating. You're showing somebody, this is everything that happened to me in my past. There's been good, there's been bad, but my future is bright. My future is that I should be a doctor, and the future is that I need to be a doctor, and it should be coherent and concise. So what's good? What are you good at? What are you bad at? Imagine if I started my personal statement, let's just say cooking. I'm not particularly great at cooking. I could write, I am the worst cook you have ever met in your entire life. If you read that as the first sentence in your personal statement, you'd probably be interested. Where is this guy going with that? Or if I wrote, I am the best cook you ever will have met in your entire life. Again, I'd be interested in seeing where that's going. I am the best guitarist. I am amazing at guitar. I am terrible at guitar. I'm so bad at guitar, yet I play it every night. Again, that's interesting. You want to be saying things that are interesting about yourself, that are eyebrow raising, that make the person want to find out a little bit more about you. And then you're going to somehow bring it full circle using that as an example of where you go next with that. What defines you? If I asked you what makes you unique, what makes you different than everybody else? So again, a room full of doctors, we probably have a bunch of smart people. We probably have people who care about other people. We have team players. We have all of these things, but what makes you different than everybody else? And everybody is different than everybody else in at least one way. And if you don't know that about you, ask your friends, ask your family, say, hey, like, what do you think is good about me? What is your favorite thing about me? So what defines you? What is your best trait? What is your worst trait? What is very hard for you and what is easy for you? You could write about any of those things. You could say the hardest thing for me to do is to sit down and study. I have a really hard time doing it. And that's always been a challenge for me. But the way I learned to overcome it, and that's the most important thing, the way I learned to overcome it was A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And ever since I learned how to overcome it, it then took me to that next point. Let's use basketball as an example again. I'm the best basketball player you've ever met, or I'm the worst basketball player you've ever met, but I resolved to get better at it. Again, you are trying to show the future. Your future is bright. Where did you come from? Who are the people that are important to you? What is your background? Those things are important because people want to understand who you are, where you're coming from, and what you're bringing to the team. And, the bottom line is, again, you want to bring it full circle. You want it to be that I started out like this. I went through life doing ABC. This worked. That didn't work. I stopped that. I started this. I went through this hardship. That happened to me. This happened to that person I care about. And because of all of that, you shouldn't have to finish your sentence. You should be able to finish your personal statement without saying the words, I want to be a doctor, because it should be so obvious. And it shouldn't be obvious that you want to be a doctor. It should be obvious that you need to be a doctor. Again, need, you're showing passion. And I actually had somebody who read my personal statement in an advising position, my personal statement for getting into residency. They actually began to tear up as they were reading it. And that's not because it was the most beautiful personal statement ever, although maybe it's in the running for it. It's because it made them reflect, like a drama or a love story or a movie. It makes you think about things in your own life. So when you see raw authenticity that is moving, it makes you think about your own life, and it makes you think, about things in your life that were good or bad. And you want to get the person reading your personal statement to be your new cheerleader. They've never met you, and you want them to be rooting for you. You want them to say, we need this guy or girl in our program because this is one of the most amazing human beings, and I've never even met them. And I can't wait to meet them. I need to meet them. You want to bring your story full circle. And then you don't want it to leave there. You want to show that the future is, the sky's the limit. I am amazing, but I'm going to be even better after I get into your school or program. Another just one or two examples of some areas you can be creative before we get into some questions is, let's just say you play guitar, right? Again, you want to be authentic. You want to be honest. And I have to say that again, you want to be honest because you never want to be in a situation, besides for the fact that you want to be ethical, you never want to get caught in any of this stuff. And the people interviewing you, reading your stuff, they're trained, they're seasoned, they know what to look out for. But let's say you play guitar, right? And let's say you are, or basketball, for instance, and you are applying to a medical school in LA, and you are applying to a medical school in Texas. And the medical school in LA, you talk about how much you love basketball, and let's just say one of your favorite players is LeBron James. And let's say one of your favorite players is Russell Westbrook. And for your interview in Houston, or for the medical school in Houston, maybe you'll mention about how much you admire something about Russell Westbrook's basketball game and how that inspires you to be a doctor. The person reading your personal statement lives in the same place that Russell Westbrook plays. If you were applying in LA, maybe you would say, and that aspect of LeBron James's basketball game is something that inspires me to be a doctor in the following way. You're being honest in both cases, but you are starting to zoom in a little bit regionally on where you're trying to apply. That gets into sort of the higher level sort of tricks and skills. I don't want to say trick sounds disingenuous, but those are some of the higher level skills and artistic traits you can include in your personal statements. I do have a lot of other things to say about personal statements, and I do individual personal statement coaching and writing, where we can work more specifically individually through some of your things. Again, the most important thing is the outline. It's the strategy. When it's time to actually write it, if you spent the proper time outlining and designing, it's like a movie. If you ever watch one of these movies where in the end of the movie, all of a sudden you didn't see the ending coming, but it's just genius and it ties everything together and it solves everything perfectly and everything just makes total sense. That's what your personal statement is supposed to be, with the end of it being, wow, this person that I just read their statement, they need to be a doctor. And I'm going to see to it that everything in my power that this person becomes a doctor, or this person becomes a surgeon, or becomes an OBGYN doctor. So we can get to some questions now. I see the first question here. When weaving your story, should you highlight or avoid hardships and troubles you've been through? How do you add that in without it being the main gist of your evolution? So first of all, I love the word evolution that you used, because again, we are always evolving, and that's what you want to show. You want to show that you're always going to be improving, that you're going to be taking what's good about you and getting even better, and what's not good about you and trying to work around it. So that being the case, should you highlight or avoid hardships and troubles you've been through? So the first disclaimer is specific questions. You can always reach out to me afterwards. And this is an area, a lot of people have something that's some degree of a red flag in their past or in their application. And yeah, there are some things that it's important to address and speak to your medical, your pre-med advisors or your medical school advisors, if this is for residency, to see how they like to handle it. Sometimes if, let's say it's for residency, the dean's letter will address it. But again, some things you sort of just need to address. So how do you add it in without it being the main gist? So the best way is, again, everything is different, but let's just come up with an example. Let's just say this did not happen, for the record, but let's just say I one time had too many beers and got in the car. Shouldn't do that. You should never drink and drive, but let's just say it happened. And I don't even want to use myself as an example. Somebody else drank and drove and they got a DUI and it's on their record and there's nothing they can do about it. And they feel terrible about it. And they should never have done it. They learned from their mistakes, but it's there. Something like that, you're going to obviously have to discuss at some point. And at some point, you're going to have to show that it's not you anymore. Or it's a mistake that was made in the past. This is what you learned from it. And this is how you learned to never do it again. And this is how I'm even better than I ever was before. You want to show that you turn lemons into lemonade with everything that you do, because being a doctor is not going to be easy. Being a medical student is not going to be easy. So that being the case, a certain thing in my past, it's not good. It's not ideal. It was challenging. This is how I learned to work around it. And this is how I now deal with things moving forward. So you can do it relatively quickly. It doesn't have to be, the main focus, but, and again, depending on your specific situation, it maybe or maybe does not belong in the personal statement. I will also be doing some shorter features on other things such as letters of recommendation, the interview. So if you're not subscribed already to this channel, I would suggest you do, so that you can get some of those updates, as well as get more information on some other videos that we're going to be doing in the future. Another question: how important is it to show clinical experience within the personal statements? So again, kind of like what I've said with other things in the past, let's just say you want to be a brain surgeon and you're talking about a personal statement for brain surgery residency. Other than maybe a rotation or two as a med student where they probably didn't let you do that much cutting of the brain, you were probably watching. The admissions council for the residency, they're probably not expecting you to have been a brain surgeon before. So you have to show that you understand it, that you're passionate about it, that what goes into it. You have to keep in mind another thing, that they're going to see the other parts of your application. So you don't have to get everything in your personal statement if they're going to be seeing some of those other things. I would definitely focus and highlight the ones that are most important to you. So specifically, how important is it to show clinical experience within the personal statements? I don't think you need to show all that much. I would maybe give a narrative, like a little story of something. So let's say you were shadowing or you were volunteering. I think I included in my medical, I remember this in my medical school application, in my personal statement, I shared a story about one moment when I was volunteering in the emergency room and how initially the patient in the room didn't want me to take care of them because I was not the doctor, and they said I'll wait for the doctor. And I explained what happened after that, and that later on, that same exact patient said, "No, like this guy, Jonathan, he needs to stay with me. He's the person here that's going to take care of me." So again, you can kind of show that you've done some clinical stuff, but use it as an opportunity to make yourself really shine. And again, you want to be making yourself shine throughout all of this. Disclaimer again, I've never officially been a medical school admissions counselor or residency counselor. So a lot of this information is based off of my experience in the field and in the world, and in speaking to people. I know what people are looking for. I know what people are not looking for. Any advice for non-traditional pre-meds with a significant work history outside of the medical field? Absolutely. That is a phenomenal question. If you are a non-traditional pre-med, that means you have life experience as an adult that the traditional pre-meds do not have. Because if you are the most traditional pre-med that there is, then after you finished high school, you started your bio major or whatever. No offense to people who did that. That's great. But they went through it, they shadowed, they applied for med school, they took their MCAT, and then all of a sudden they're 22, 23, starting medical school. They've been an adult for 5 years, if we really think that an 18, 19, 20-year-old is an adult anyway. So let's just say you did anything else for a few years, and then you did something, and then you decided to go to medical school. You have a chunk of time on your resume that you can use as an advantage. So you should definitely highlight how what you did during those few years will make you an even better doctor. And again, no matter what it is that you did, if you are creative with telling a personal statement story, it should be obvious and easy. If you volunteered, in a hospital, if you worked in Silicon Valley, if you were a lawyer, if you were a priest, or if you even if you were in jail for 5 years, you could talk about what you learned about being in jail. I mean, imagine a personal statement that said, I never thought I'd go to jail, but I spent 5 years there, and I sure learned a lot. I guarantee you they're going to read the sentences that come after that, but you're going to have to really show that you've changed or that you've grown since then. But again, it's an opportunity for growth. People like a growth story. People like to root for the underdog. How do we show what we've done without using specific words? So I would say I don't understand 100% what that question is asking, but again, what you've done without using, you could be specific about what you've done. You can say, I volunteered for the Special Olympics and I did this, I did that, I did that. But again, I wouldn't say I did these things, reflect on them. So you don't want it, your personal statement shouldn't be a list of things that you've done. It should be a few reflections on meaningful moments of your life that demonstrate the things that you've done, that give some color and narrative to what you've done without selling yourself, so blatantly. It should sell you. You shouldn't be selling yourself. Is there a typical length for a personal statement? There is a, if you go online, I believe AMCAS is 5,300 characters, I think, and a COMIS is 4,500 characters, I think. You can double check all of those, but there is a max that you can have. So technically you can go up to that, but you don't want it to be too short. But I think a lot of people probably find themselves in a situation where you come up with all of these amazing things you want to say about yourself. And then it's really just you figure out, I got all these things I want to say. What is the best way to structure them? Oh, I'll put this before this and this over here. This led me into that, this move over here. And then it makes perfect sense. The progression of it can be important. And then I'm worried about putting too much in my personal statement and not leaving some for the interview. Should I not be worried about repeating things in my personal statement? So the first thing I'll say about that is you should be lucky enough to get an interview. That's the first thing. So, don't assume that you're going to get that interview. You want to write, again, you need to have a grand slam personal statement. In the interview, let's just say in your personal statement, you won a Nobel Prize, you got a Purple Heart in the military, you put out a fire, you jumped on a grenade to save everybody around you, you cured cancer, all these different things that you did, you should put those in your personal statement. If they're that amazing, they're going to ask you about them in your interview. Imagine I'm interviewing you. Wow, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for curing cancer, by the way. Can you tell me a bit more about that? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The interview, they're not going to just sit there and say like, hey, sell yourself to me. It's an interview. They're going to ask you questions. And if you do believe that you are an amazing, unique person, which I'm sure you are, then you shouldn't have any trouble in an interview. There's an art to an interview. There's skill to an interview, just like there's art and skill to the personal statement. But you should, if you understand the art and skill, you should be able to talk about anything. The pen in my hand, we could talk about this for 25 minutes. We could talk about my glasses. We could talk about the weather. There's anything you should be able to talk about, and somebody should be able to say, wow, you are an amazing human being. Thank you for giving me the gift of sitting across the table from you. If you just, play it the right way. What else do we have here? Are there any resources you recommend for becoming a better writer? I really struggle with writing about myself. I would recommend, firstly, that you read. So I don't know how much you read or not, but definitely read read a bunch of really good books, and read different types of books. Read, and see which style you like, which types of authors you like. Read powerful books. Google, most important books of all time, or most moving stories of all time, or short stories maybe is actually a good idea for that, because personal statement's not super long. So, Google like the best short stories of 2020, and, you'll see modern day powerful writing that maybe would be relevant for you. See examples of what people do, but then practice doing things. And again, everybody is different, and nobody's personal statement should look the same as somebody else's. And my personal statement that I write, I'm in a residency right now. When I apply for fellowship, my personal statement for fellowship is going to be different than what my personal statement for residency was, because I'm 4 years older at that point. I've gone through different things. I'm 4 years working as a doctor. So you're always going to be changing. Everybody's personal statement should be a little bit different, but read different types of things. I'd be happy to, answer some more questions about that specifically. If you wanted to talk about your writing struggles, you can reach out to me. Again, I do personal statement, one-on-one work with people. That is a separate thing from this platform, but if anyone is interested in that, you can reach out to me for sure. And again, ultimately just practice writing. Is experience as a patient and family caregiver appropriate for medical school personal statements? 1,000,000% yes. There's so much you can do with that. I mean, let's just, you should think of everything in your personal statement as real estate. Or, you want it, or medicine, right? Like if you could only take one pill, what pill would you want to take? You would want to take one that does everything for you. So a sentence, you would want a sentence that shows that you're compassionate, tells people about you, shows that you are a nice person, shows that you have experience, shows that you have empathy, shows that you've done things. So I think that's a wonderful thing. If you have experience as a family caregiver or a patient caregiver, imagine a personal statement with, where in the beginning, you're talking about all of your experiences caring for lots of different patients. And imagine if you finished the first paragraph with, out of all of the patients that I've had the pleasure of dealing with, of caring for throughout my life, the single most important patient I ever took care of was my grandmother. And that was the end of the first paragraph, let's say, and you went on to the next one. You are hooking somebody in. And then you can show, again, you're trying to prove why you want to be a doctor and why you should be a doctor. There's lots of people that can do well in school, that can get good grades, that can be smart. You want to show that you're an awesome human being and that you have life experience, that you're well thought out, that you have kind of all those traits I listed in the beginning. So that's a good way to knock out many things at once. What are some of the most common mistakes that students should avoid when writing personal statements? So I haven't read a lot of people's bad personal statements, but what I can tell you is some pitfalls in general with it is, I'm somebody who tries to be funny a lot of times, and you have to be really careful when you're doing that, because a lot of times it can be inappropriate, to be fun. If you're in an interview, you shouldn't be telling jokes. If you don't want to be too cliche, so I would say that off the bat. I would say, like, don't be boring, sell yourself. If I had a medical school and I was looking for my inaugural class, I would want a class of people that I thought were going to go out there and do amazing things. So I think it's okay to sell yourself, but, just do it. Don't be too bragging, but don't sell yourself short. And the other thing is, use words that are good. And if you're not a good writer, and even if you are a good writer, have people review it, send it to people that are good writers, show it to people that are good writers, and say, hey, what do you think of this? How can I make that sentence better? Don't rush it. So that's a mistake I've definitely seen some peers of mine make. Don't do it at the last minute. Every single sentence of your personal statement could take hours to write, and not to write the first time, but to reanalyze and reassess. I should use this word. No, do I need and there, or do I not? Is it better if I had a comma? Is it more powerful if I made that 2 sentences or 1 sentence with a compound word? Every single detail. And again, the next thing I would say is and this is what I say about everything, is don't focus on getting the job done. Try to be the best person that there ever was at what you're doing. So if I'm going to write I could tell you my goal for my last personal statement for getting into residency, I wanted to write the best personal statement anybody has ever written, ever. My goal for fellowship is I want to write the best personal statement for fellowship anybody has ever written. Now, I don't have a complex or delusions of grandeur. I know that that's probably highly unlikely. But if I approach it in that way, then my odds of writing an amazing personal statement are higher. So don't just write a statement that gets the job done, but tell yourself, I am going to write the single-handedly best personal statement. This is an area where you have a gift on your application. And the reason for that is, no matter what grade, if you had good grades before, your personal statement is a way to show that you have good grades and you're an amazing candidate because of all these other wonderful things about you. And if you didn't have the best grades, your personal statement is a way to show other parts of you that are really awesome and explain why you didn't, necessarily did so well. But, your personal statement gives you control. There's a lot of this process that you don't have control, and your personal statement gives you control. You can write whatever you want. Whoever's going to be reading it, they have to read the words that you chose. So it is definitely it is definitely a asset that you should take advantage of. Is it true med schools view personal statements about your mental health as a red flag? So this is a challenging question. I would be careful with putting too much in the personal statement. I don't have experience with dealing with that or coaching people through that. So I would defer that question to your pre-med advisor. That being the case, there's a time and a place for everything. So at some point, if you have something that the school needs to know about, or if the school, and that, again, that's true for anything, we can use the example of, if somebody who drove a car and let's say they had 1 beer, but that 1 beer just put their, they have a, they're very skinny, and that 1 beer put them over the limit, and they got tested and they got a DUI. If you got a DUI, it's probably something that you need to address to your medical school at some point, I would imagine. But how do you want to go about it? So mental health is definitely something that has to be done the right way. It's important. And the other thing, though, is that medical schools understand that people are complex. And the thing is that if somebody has a mental health, background, that doesn't mean they can't be an amazing medical student, and that doesn't mean they can't be an amazing doctor. And maybe that experience will make them an even better doctor. And that's really how you want to show it. You want to show, yes, I may have this or I may have that. And maybe I had some challenge with it at previous points in my life. But what I learned, the way that I learned to deal with it, is why I'm going to be an even better doctor than if I never had it. And that's kind of what you want to show. But I would speak to, an advisor that's officially an advisor to know the right and wrong way to address that. So sorry, I can't give more specific information than that. I did get some questions through Instagram, and let me just bring those up right now. If anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to ask them. Let's see. As far as the we discussed the length. You want the length to be, like I said, 5,300 characters, I believe, is the AMCAS max. the Acomas max, I believe, is 4,500 characters. A lot of the other Instagram questions we sort of spoke about. I tried to answer them by weaving them into the general discussion. If you have a specific question about personal statement that wasn't answered precisely or specifically, please feel free to reach out to me so I can answer it more. But I tried to be as all-encompassing for everybody. It looks like there are no more questions down at the bottom about personal statements. Anybody has any other questions, reach out to me. I can always do a follow-up video on it, so subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet. And if I get enough questions or questions on a specific topic, I could just make a YouTube video on it and release it. I'm going to be doing a video on the interview. We're going to be doing a live session on the interview. We're going to talk about letters of recommendation. Here's a question that I think looks good. I understand that you should discuss hardships, but is it viewed negatively to make them feel bad about you? So I think maybe the question you're asking, if I'm not mistaken, is like if you're trying to make them have sympathy for you. Like, let's just say, I spent a few years in a coma, and I missed out on high school, for instance. And so if your question is, when I tell you about that story, is it bad for me to just try to make you feel bad about what I went through so that you take me based on sympathy? I would think that, first of all, the people making these decisions for admissions, they are probably not going to take somebody just for the reason of feeling bad for them, to be honest. That doesn't mean emotion doesn't play into a factor. But what I would say again is, use everything in your past to show that you've had challenges in your life, but you learn how to overcome them. And this is how I do overcome them. And this is why my future is going to be great. So I wouldn't, the other thing is you have to keep in mind that these people are professionals. So they're going to see something that you wrote about and it's obvious what you're trying to accomplish when you write. So if I wouldn't share something in a way that is looking like I'm just trying to gain sympathy, but that doesn't mean you should shy away from a story that you went through that's challenging. If you went through a story that would make somebody feel bad about what you went through, you should still tell that story because it shows that you went through something challenging, and then show how you came out of it. It's okay if they feel bad and they have sympathy for you. Like I said, in my most recent personal statement that I wrote, an advisor, when the advisor was reading it, they started to cry. And they said, "This is amazing." They were moved. So it's okay to move your writer. I think a good personal statement will move the writer. It might inspire them. It might make them happy. It might make them sad. It might, you should do something powerful, but just do it the right way, do it appropriately, do it respectfully. I think that's what we got for tonight on personal statements. Anybody has any other questions on personal statements, feel free to reach out to me. We are going to be discussing some updates for the leadership program this week. I have, so far, to my understanding, the email addresses for everybody that's interested in the pre-med leadership program. I'm going to be sending out an email if that was something you were interested in. And I don't have your email address. Make sure to send that along to me so you can stay up on what's going on with that. Otherwise, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for watching. Lastly, fact check. Anything that I said, I think I'm right, but you should ask more than one person, and always ask numerous people to read your personal statement. I had, one person that knows you well, another person that knows you well, have people that are good at English read your personal statement. Have people, if you know somebody that has a job, let's say not necessarily in medicine, but if somebody has a job in something corporate where they do a lot of hiring decisions or they do a lot of reviewing of paperwork, there's somebody that would be good to take a look at your personal statement also, even if it's not specifically medical related. So I appreciate all the good feedback in the chat. Let's be in touch. Any questions or comments, reach out to me on Instagram. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hope to see you again shortly. Have a good night.